Trumpism will not be defeated by politicians inside the D.C. Beltway. That is not going to happen. It will be defeated by millions of Americans in Nebraska, in Iowa, in Vermont, and all over this country.
Bernie Sanders has been doing town hall meetings to big crowds. This might be an indication that people are ready to fight back against the second Trump administration. David Doel on his show, The Rational National, broke all this down. We're going to take a look at clips of Bernie Sanders on his show. I'm going to share my thoughts about this as well. Let's check it out together.
The time to fight back is now.
A lot of Americans, for a good reason, are feeling a little aimless right now. A lot of pent-up frustration around what the Trump administration is doing, and the Democratic Party isn't doing a whole lot to fight back against it. Cue Bernie Sanders, who held several events over the weekend for good reason. I'll get to what that reason is. But massive crowd showed, which I gotta say is, for me, not surprising because it's Bernie Sanders, but typically we're holding events outside of a campaign, outside of a primary, nothing, there's no election going on, and having this many people show up is wild. But before I get to a couple of clips and why Bernie is doing this and his attempt to organize voters, I want to remind you, in case you forgot, or maybe you never saw this, this is an incredible map. This is from 2019, going into the 2020 primary, candidates with the most individual donors. Bernie Sanders, this map comes up every now and then on social media. People bring it back up because it shows you so much. Bernie Sanders with support all across the country. This was the energy that he's able to continue harnessing because he continues being one of the few people that is truly in the opposition to the Republican Party. He's an independent senator fighting for what's right, is willing to criticize the complete failure of the Democratic Party to fight back against both Trump and the oligarchy. And he's able, and I think best poised, to go with this message. So before I get to the first clip, this is the environment of where this is all taking place and why people are feeling a certain way. Trump has tapped an unprecedented 13 billionaires for his administration. So I will link to this source below the video in case you want to go through all 13. But this gets to people's feelings right now around the economy. Here is Harry Enton on CNN.
Rutrow, the reboot not as well received as the original. Economy is currently good or excellent. Look at this. In April of 2017, it was 40%. Look at where we are in February of 2025, just half that level. 20%. My goodness gracious. The term one high was 63% of Americans in February of 2020 thought the economy was excellent or good. This 20% we have currently going on right now is fewer Americans saying the economy is excellent or good than at any point during Trump's first term. This is not a good sign, Kate Baldwin.
J.D. Vance said last week, you got to give them time, even though that's not what they promised in the campaign. They said they'd bring prices down day one. But what is the view of the future economy then? Yeah, so this is the current economy. How about the future economy? Is the economy getting worse or better? And all I can say is yikes. Yikes. Again, compare it to where we were in the first term at this point, April of 2017, 53%. The majority said it was getting better. How about now in February of 2025? The majority say it's getting worse. 59% compared to just 35% who say it's getting better. Worse is higher now than at any point in Trump's first term pre-COVID. This number, to me, is much more worrisome. Perhaps the worst number I've seen for Trump on the economy, because it says even if the economy now isn't great, they also project that it's only going to get worse from here. This is a big, big yikes.
So the majority of Americans believe that the economy is terrible and that it's only going to continue getting worse under Donald Trump. But maybe they haven't seen that Trump's billionaire cabinet represents the top 0.0001%.
Before David Doel gets into the next part, I just wanted to say anyone with any sense that's looking at what is going on with Donald Trump's administration and with Elon Musk with Doge can see that the economy is going to get worse. I saw a video last night in my town where I live. The top employer is the federal government, and they just fired 200 workers there. The average salary of the people working there is about $90,000. So you take 200 people making an average of $90,000 out of a fairly small area. I live in a pretty rural area, and the people right now that are cheering that on, in a few months, they're going to be saying, hey, how come my favorite restaurant closed? I don't understand. Is it because nobody wants to work? No, it's because there aren't enough people who can afford to eat at that restaurant.
These people have your best interests at heart. So people should be confident in the economy and it working for them if their name is Elon Musk. So the collective net worth of Trump's top appointees is reportedly estimated to exceed $460 billion, including Elon Musk's $400 billion net worth. Even without Musk, Trump's cabinet and top appointees in 2025 by far exceeds the wealth of previous cabinets, including his previous cabinet and previous record holder, which was worth $3.2 billion. President Biden's cabinet collectively was worth $118 million. So I want to be clear. This is still an issue, but there's a massive difference here between the level of billionaires that are in Trump's cabinet and the multimillionaires in a Democratic cabinet. Both are still wrong. There should be more representation of the working class, of unions. Union leaders should really be the ones leading the charge. But it's beyond terrible what Trump and his cabinet are doing. That's where Bernie Sanders comes in. So this is his Fighting Oligarchy tour. Where we go from here. So he went to Omaha, Nebraska, Iowa City, Iowa. I'll get to a clip in a second, but here are some images. He said on Twitter here, I want to thank the overflow crowds who came out in Iowa City to stand up to Trumpism. Together we must say no to oligarchy, no to authoritarianism, no to massive cuts in Medicaid, and no to huge tax breaks for billionaires. Check out this crowd. And then the overflow crowd, which is a little wild. That there is even an overflow crowd. So let me get to a clip. This one is from Nebraska, but I'm going to get some more data around just how crazy these crowds were in a second.
Trumpism will not be defeated by politicians inside the D.C. Beltway. That is not going to happen. It will be defeated by millions of Americans in Nebraska, in Iowa, in Vermont, and all over this country. Who come together at the grassroots level like we are doing tonight in a movement which says no to oligarchy, no to authoritarianism, no to kleptocracy, no to massive cuts in programs that the working class desperately needs, and no to huge tax breaks for the billionaires and the 1%.
So you see there, Bernie acknowledges that this is not going to be stopped by people within Congress, but it will be stopped by a movement of regular people who stand together. And he goes on, as I'll get to later, to sort of give an idea or discuss an avenue for where at least these people should go. And you can, as I'll discuss later, you can kind of see what he's trying to help create. But Faz Shakir, who has worked with Bernie for years, says this is a first in many ways. We had two different large flow crowds in Iowa City. One of those overflows was so large that it was bigger than the original theater he came to speak at. So Again, I know I'm harping on these crowds, but it's not an election. There's not a primary going on.
And I think the crowds are great. I want to skip ahead to what he's actually saying that people can do.
His Republican leadership, as we speak, are working on this bill. Massive tax breaks for the rich, paid for by cuts to Medicaid, education, housing, and the programs that working people need. Now, it turns out that in the House of Representatives, there is right now a reality where Republicans have a very, very slim majority. Republicans have, as I recall, 218 members. Democrats have 215. They have a 3-vote majority. That is not much. If 2 Republicans go to the Speaker of the House and say, Mr. Speaker, no way am I going to betray my constituents. No way am I going to make massive cuts in Medicaid and other programs to give tax breaks to billionaires. If 2 Republicans do it, that terrible bill is defeated. And what I am asking you to do is make sure that your congressman, Mr. Bacon, is one of those 2 Republicans.
All right, I'm almost going to get to the link in a second here, showing you where he wants a lot of these people to sign up. And there's something in there that I find interesting. But this is the point of these specific events, is to target these voters in these Republican districts to put pressure on their representatives.
So I'm going to stop here. If you want to watch the entire video, you can go to the Rational National YouTube channel, David Doel's channel. And what Bernie is doing here is a correct strategy, I believe. So we know that, you think that none of these Republicans or, politicians in general can be really pressured. But if people call their members of Congress, they don't like that. They don't want people calling them. And we saw this when, very early on in this second term. I mean, we're still very early on, sadly. But very early on in this second term of Trump, when they froze a lot of the different payments. And there was a lot of talk that Republicans in certain districts were getting calls from their constituents saying, don't do this. And then those Republican politicians were contacting the White House and saying, hey, I'm getting pressure from the people in my district. So they can be pressured. We think that just like they're going to completely ignore anything other than what their ideologies are, but they can be pressured. So this is a good idea from Bernie Sanders. The unfortunate thing is that Bernie can't do this on his own. I mean, we've seen this over the last several years, really over the decades, where Bernie Sanders is kind of the lone voice, crying in the wilderness. And we need lots more Democrats in Congress doing this same thing, having town halls like this, going and appearing with Bernie Sanders at these town halls and telling people to tell the Republicans not to vote for these horrible bills and not to put through these terrible plans. And also, when it gets time for the midterms, the Democrats also can't just sit on their hands. In 2018, people were seeing how terrible Trump's first administration was, and the Democrats did well in the midterms in 2018. This should be an easy midterm for the Democrats again, because, poll numbers are already dropping for Trump and not very good. By the time we get 2 years into this second term, people are going to be really upset after, if they fire 1 million federal workers, if they're able to cut Medicaid by $880 billion, they do some of these other stupid and horrible and dangerous things that they want to do, people are going to be upset. So this should be pretty easy in the midterms for the Democrats, but it's the Democrats. We know how inept they can be. But let me know in the comments what you think about all of this. Do you like what Bernie is doing here? I mean, I like it. The big question is going to be what impact it will have. Do you think what Bernie Sanders is doing will have an impact? Let me know what you think about what David Doel had to say about all of this. Make sure to give me a comment and a like and subscribe. This is Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.